I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, welcome everybody to our meeting this evening. I wanted to just review for a second our public comment and our order of events here this evening. So we have one item on the agenda tonight. We are going to present the item. We're going to then have some board question and answer. We're going to call for a board motion, and then we'll open for public comment. After that, we'll do the board and superintendent response to questions that come during public comment. And then we will have a little more board comment if needed, and we will vote. I want to remind everybody to please turn your video off. We'd love to have your participation in this meeting. And when you're speaking, if you would like to turn your video back on, you may do that. And you'll have 3 minutes to speak in public comment and 1 opportunity per item. And if you'd like to speak, please raise your virtual hand to do that when I ask for public comment on the item. I also forgot to take roll, and everybody is here except for Melissa and Lucas, who are on excused absences this evening. All right, so we are going to begin with item 3A, the resolution 21-1649 to approve the return to in-person instruction on March 18th, 2021.
Great, thank you, Caitlin. I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through this resolution. It's a little more significant and higher level of interest in it. Just as I'm beginning to speak, however, I would just make note that the board and I are distanced. We have plexiglass. I've taken my mask off so that I can be heard clearly. The rest of the board has theirs on. So there was some concern after our Thursday meeting about us and protocols, but what we're doing here is in compliance with guidance. So our resolution tonight has a lengthy title, and I'll read that. And I'm going to provide what I intend to be a brief summary of each of the components of the resolution, just to make sure that the board has a thorough understanding and the opportunity to ask any questions prior to considering motion. So the name of this resolution is to approve the return to in-person instruction on March 18, 2021 in the district's hybrid reopening model and emergency resolution in the event of a concerted refusal to work by employees occurs during the 2020-2021 school year. And this is resolution number 21-1649. So resolutions have 2 primary structures to them. So the first one are the recitals, and the second one is actually the area where things are resolved or committed to. The recitals, if you're looking at the document at home, all begin with the word whereas. And so they essentially, establish the conditions that the resolution is based on. So this resolution has 11 whereas, 11 recitals, 11 components to the recital. So I am going to give just a 1 or 2 line description of each of those recitals, and then move on to the resolved items. So the first item just makes reference to the history of the period of closure that has been in place since March 16th of last year. The second recital makes a citation that SB 98, which is the legislation under which schools in California are operating this year, does include language that we should be providing in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. Item number 3 in the recitals brings reference to the fact that the board has adopted a reopening plan. Item 4 in the recitals refers to the fact that we are anticipated to move from the purple tier to the red tier with the announcement from California Department of Public Health tomorrow. The fifth part of the recital makes reference to the fact that a hybrid instructional model is allowed under the provisions of SB 98. The sixth item makes reference to the California Department of Public Health guidance that was issued in January of this year, providing for a reopening in the red tier. The seventh element of this list of recitals makes reference to the California Constitution and that there is an inalienable right to school for both students and staff. Item 8 provides for the fact that the board must be prepared for all emergencies that could happen within the school district. Number 9 states that the board is permitted to delegate their responsibility and powers and duties to the superintendent of schools or any of their designees. Item 10 is the statement that the board does wish to delegate certain powers and duties to the superintendent in the event that there is an absence of a large number of employees from school sites or the district that jeopardizes safety, security, or creates a breakdown in the educational program. And finally, the 11th element of the recitals is that the governing board and administration do have a good faith belief that there are unit members considering the possibility of refusing to work over their concerns about returning to in-person through the hybrid model. So again, those are the background facts, the background rationale behind what we're asking the board to approve as a resolution tonight. So there are about 3 pages of items that the board is being asked to approve this evening, and I'll walk through each of them in as organized a manner as I can. So the first one is titled In-Person Instruction to Commence on March 18, 2021. And this is about the shortest of these items being resolved, and that reflects what we've discussed at our most recent board meeting about beginning on March 18th, 2021, consistent with the guidelines in California Department of Public Health guidance document. Item number 2 is the concerted refusals to work by district employees. So the first element of this section makes clear that any actual or serious threat, or if an event actually takes place, a concerted refusal to work by employees would impede and interfere with our operations and damage our efforts to both return to in-person and, in fact, damage students in the district. The idea that the definition of a concerted refusal to work means any kind of work stoppage or slowdown or sick out or other interruption of work that's planned or accomplished by employees that violates any policies or laws. And it absolutely does not mean any lawful work to rule programs, leafleting, peaceful picketing, or any of the other protected forms of speech that exist under law. The third item in this section says that if there is actually a concerted refusal to work, that does constitute an emergency within the district. And under the provisions of law, with this resolution, the board preemptively declares such an emergency in order to be able to respond to it quickly and efficiently if the concerted refusal to work were actually to take place. The third, oh, sorry, let me get to the right page here. The next section in this portion talks about steps, actions that the superintendent or any of my designees are empowered to take during any kind of emergency that's been described, and why. And they amount to, providing for this welfare, safety, and well-being of students. The same for the safety of persons working for the district, to protect our property, to ensure and protect personal property of those working, and then importantly, to provide necessary staffing and instruction. Should any actions be taken under the provisions of this resolution, the final bullet, the final section in this part regarding the concerted refusals to work, any actions taken would have to be formally reported to the governing board. Okay. So the next section is titled Employee Participation in a Refusal to Work or Strike. I'm breaking each of these paragraphs down again briefly. So should anyone participate in this type of activity, then the district has a responsibility to document that that is the case. It's also stated that an employee may not be allowed to use sick leave, personal necessity, or any other kind of leave when it is evident that the individual is actually participating in a concerted work effort, the refusal to work or strike. Okay. The next paragraph establishes that should someone participate in a work stoppage, refusal to work, that they do not receive compensation of any form for that pay. So that's salary, benefits, STRS contribution, all forms of compensation. The next item here is that leaves of absence are allowable in compliance with the collective bargaining agreements and any MOUs that exist. So existing leaves of absence are protected under this resolution. The fourth paragraph, fourth section here talks about the fact that if someone were absent on a day of action and were claiming sick leave, that they would have to provide a physician's verification that that is in fact why they were out. Next section states that all vacations and professional leaves are suspended during period of emergency unless specifically authorized. And finally, just a general statement that reasonable verification of absences can be required in addition to those that were specified above. Next section refers to the negotiations process. And this is really standard practice language that it's the designated negotiations team of the district who are authorized to participate in the negotiations process. Other individuals, any other individual not on that list is not authorized to represent the district, and others should not engage with them attempting to negotiate. And the second element in this section makes the reference to what has been previously established publicly, that the board expects the negotiations team to continue in the good faith effort to reach an agreement and be able to resolve our return through the negotiations process. Next section refers to no discussion of negotiations. And there are two paragraphs here. And essentially what they establish is that staff members are not allowed to involve students into any negotiations, discussion, activities during instructional time. So specific to instructional time. if students wish to participate in picketing or some other demonstration outside of the school day, there is no prohibition of that. But instructional time is specifically established under law as a time where students should not be involved. On the final page is a little bit of the most boilerplate standard kind of language. The first paragraph established that this resolution is presented in compliance with existing law and the board's authority and the California Constitution. That if any of this resolution were to be challenged and judged to be invalid, only those sections, that section or those sections declared invalid would be involved or held. Other provisions would remain in effect. And finally, this resolution is within the board's authority and is necessary to protect the district, the welfare of our schools and pupils in the case of an emergency, and that it becomes effective immediately upon approval, if that happens tonight, and remains in effect until formally repealed by board action. So it would take board action to eliminate this resolution at a time of the board's choosing. Again, should it be approved tonight. I do want to bring out on page 2 one small error, and apologize for this, but we have a reference in the first sentence, actually in the second line of the final paragraph of the recital. So it starts with, whereas based upon conversations with staff and representatives, and then it refers to the Dixon Teachers Association and Dixon chapter of SEIU 1021. There's a good faith belief by this governing board that representatives and unit members in the certificated bargaining unit, this should actually read in the certificated and classified bargaining units. So we reflect SEIU in that second line. In the third line, we limited that to the certificated. So as the board considers this resolution tonight, I would ask that that you consider it with the addition of those two words, and classified bargaining units. The unit becomes plural. So apologize for that oversight. So that is a quick run through the resolution, and I would certainly answer any questions that the board has.
All right, so I will open for board questions, comments, thoughts, based on the information we've heard this evening. Anyone? DJ, go ahead.
Hi there. I'm going to read a prepared statement. This resolution's intention is to require teachers and classified employees to return to work regardless of the status of an agreed to memorandum of understanding, or MOU. One of my 3 stated goals when running my election campaign was to help teachers feel supported at the board level and that their concerns were being heard and addressed. I believe that attempting to supersede the right to negotiate fair and safe working conditions for a unit of employees is not something I'm interested in supporting as a governing board member. I understand that taking this stance may look as if I'm against schools opening as soon as possible, but that is not true. I'm in favor of opening schools as soon as possible, but not without the support of the people who will be educating and supporting the children of this community. I'm going to cut out some details and just cut to the chase, but I know that negotiations are difficult, and I would trust that teachers know what's best for students, and I want their voice heard in a fair way at the table, and there are at least 10 days to get that done. I'm open to that being done outside work hours and whatever it takes to get their voices heard. On February 18th, I voted for a directive that said administrative staff is directed to finalize details of the return, including instructional schedules based on this timeline with our labor partners. All I want to do is give the labor groups a chance to come to an agreement as I had originally voted for, and I believe this resolution is a step too far. Thank you.
Great. Any other board questions, comments, thoughts?
Just a question. How long have we been in negotiations with both groups?
Brian, can you repeat the question too? Just I want to make sure.
Yeah.
And I got a text that we're not being heard very well, so loud voices would be.
So the question was, how long have we been in negotiations? And I might ask Cindy Nguyen, our Executive Director of Human Resources, to help me out here. So the one answer is we've been in negotiations since last March for the most part. This is actually the third memorandum of understanding that we're negotiating over the course of that year. So 2 had been previously approved. Cindy, if you could join in and refresh my memory of when we began working on this particular MOU.
Yes, so we started having conversations about returning in person probably late October, early November, when we were still in red. And we were very close to getting an agreement for certain programs to return prior to Thanksgiving break. However, unfortunately, our county went into the purple tier. So since then, we've still been having conversations about in-person as information became available to us from the county level and through the state level. And just to reiterate what Brian had mentioned earlier, is that we have been negotiating since March of last year. But as you know, with distance learning and different working conditions in the spring, that was also required to be negotiated as well.
Great, thank you, Cindy.
You're
Other, Jewel, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a clarifying question. Because today is March 8th, correct? And if we have 10 more days to negotiate, that gets us to March 18th. And I'm wondering how we can open schools on March 18th as planned if we continue negotiations for 10 more days.
Cindy, I'll let you take the first brush at that one. Procedural sense, please.
Procedurally, we still continue to be at the table to negotiate in good faith with both of our labor groups. 10 days might be a little bit too late. However, not all of us have control over the process in itself. But I'm confident that the goal for all involved would be to get an agreement as soon as possible.
Great, thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
And, go ahead, Judith Moore.
Well, if we want an agreement, which we all do as soon as possible, and I don't like what if questions or what if statements, but what if we don't have an agreement as soon as possible and we have 10 days before the 18th? How can we possibly open schools overnight? I'm just asking.
Cindy, you want to address, again, in a legal sense, what happens without an MOU in place, or what can happen? And we've seen evidence of this around the state in a number of districts who weren't able to reach agreement on MOUs prior to school beginning in the fall.
So some things that,
It's a complicated matter.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying it's a complicated matter, right? But we do know of districts in the area who did return to school at the approved time without agreements in place.
Yes, so in some other districts, that does happen. And, you know, if that did, that would mean that both parties would be at impasse. And what that would mean is that both parties can't come to an agreement that both parties can live with. At that point, districts would have the option to move forward, and also the resolution tonight would allow for that support to happen. And we would declare impasse at that point. And there would be additional steps to be taken, but districts have moved forward without agreements. That's not what we would want to see happen from both sides, from all parties involved. And that is the reason why between now and when we reopen prior to, I'm confident that we will continue this dialogue with both parties.
Great, thanks, Cindy.
Welcome.
I have a question.
All right, Joel, go ahead.
Okay, there's a difference between school opening your doors for students with teachers back at work, and having teachers have an appropriate time prior to that happening. So how does that work?
So part of our conversations with regards to returning the in-person hybrid model does involve a time on the school campuses prior to students returning. So it's something that has been discussed at the table, but not finalized because we don't have a full agreement yet. So we recognize that staff would need time on campus prior to students returning. We're trying to provide for that.
Lloyd, go ahead.
I agree philosophically with DJ's position that this should be done through the bargaining process. But if DJ is telling me that we can't bargain this thing for another 2 or 3 months and the school year is lost, then I adamantly disagree. We need to get our kids back with their teachers. And so I'm cut both ways, but when push comes to shove, they have 4 months to bargain this thing. And we're still got, what, 11 items that haven't been resolved yet? You really think they're going to be resolved in the next 10 days? I don't think so, but I'm not speculating. What I am telling you is, I think we need to have our kids back with their teachers. I think that's in the best interest of the students. That's why we're here as a board, to protect the rights of the students. Who is their voice? That's us. And so that's why I'm going to vote for this resolution.
Great, thank you, Lloyd. Other board questions, comments?
I want to go on record as supporting Lloyd.
Great, thank you. I wanted to ask a question specifically, and I know you read through the resolution, I appreciate that. I think it's, legal documents are always confusing and cumbersome, and it's really helpful to go through it step by step. I just want to make sure that we're clear that nothing in this resolution precludes us from continuing to work with both our bargaining units and coming to resolution on the MOU.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask for the opportunity to emphasize a couple things, and I did put an email out to district employees earlier today to try to help frame this a little bit. So the resolution tonight and the provisions around what happens if there is a concerted effort to stop work, absolutely contingent on that happening. That our labor groups or individuals, because it doesn't have to formally be my labor group, that they would not report to work in significant enough numbers to disrupt our efforts to bring back our kids and educate them. let me say it very clearly. We don't expect that to happen. We don't expect our employees individually or formally as associations to take the kind of action that is described in this resolution. Now, why do the resolution then? It prepares the district for the worst case scenario. It is the insurance policy in some regards that should something happen, should we not be able to reach agreement, which we believe that we can, and we're committed to finishing, that should something happen that we are already, I am authorized by the board through this resolution to take the steps necessary to deal with that emergency. That is considered to be an emergency. Okay, so I can tell you for myself as the superintendent of schools, and I'll speak for the board on this, and I certainly will speak for the number of administrative staff who are on the district's negotiations team. We have not done all this work not to reach agreement in that. That's not what this resolution is trying to accomplish. This resolution is contingency language should the worst case scenario develop. Again, we don't believe that will develop. We don't. We're making good progress in the negotiations with both groups. The reality is the clock is now ticking very loudly in our ears. We have had employees in the district say things like, well, what will the district do if we don't come back to work? The resolution makes reference to those types of things. Comments at the negotiations, at least one of the negotiations table, suggesting if something if progress was not made in a certain area or something like that, then perhaps negotiations wouldn't occur according to the schedule. Again, we have an obligation to have a good faith belief that these things could happen. I think those types of comments from individuals do constitute the basis for that good faith belief. I'll tell you, as superintendent of schools, who has been here a long time and who knows our staff, I do not believe that a concerted work effort or a strike or work stoppage is going to happen in Dixon. That's not who our people are. It's not how this place operates. But if we know anything at this point of time, after this last year, because at this point, a year ago today, we were talking about when we were going to close, right? And now we're talking about when we're going to open. But if this year shows us anything, it shows us that anything can happen. Any unexpected thing can happen really at any time. And again, the board is being asked to be cautious and conservative by adopting this resolution, providing me and my staff authority to deal with any kind of emergency. That's really it. And Lloyd, just to clarify that the 11 items here, they're not issues to continue to negotiate. They're just circumstances that exist. So I don't want somebody to think, oh, that there's 11 items. There's all sorts of moving pieces with both labor groups in terms of things that we are working on and things that we are, some things that are done and others that have to be completed. So I can't assign a number to them, because especially some of them just kind of morph into each other. So just wanted to clarify that as well. I said this in my email to staff today. I have consistently characterized both publicly and privately our negotiations process as constructive and positive. And I understand that this resolution has caused alarm for people in both labor groups and probably outside of the district as well. understand that. And this is not, this does not have that intent to it. This is intended to preserve the board's right to respond to a situation that we don't expect to happen, but if it did, we would have to be able to address it immediately. That's the purpose of this resolution.
Thank you. Any other board questions, comments before we entertain a motion and then move into public comment? All right, I'm going to entertain a motion on the resolution as amended, as suggested to be amended to include the additional 2 words and classified and then an S on the end of bargaining units. So is there a motion for the resolution? There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Now we're going to move to public comment on the motion on the floor. So if you have a comment on the motion on the floor, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I'm going to start with Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. And I would like to make sure I get said everything I need to get said. So I appreciate 3 minutes, but if I run a little bit over, I appreciate your understanding. I want to clarify a couple of things for the public as well as for the board. Number one is the DTA has never, ever stated the intention that it would ever leave the negotiation table, nor that its people would go on a concerted work stoppage. The public needs to know we have not said that. What we have said is that we do not want to take any more time away from our students by taking days off, and that we were willing to work after hours. That is number one. Number two is, yes, we've been in negotiations since March, but prior to Thanksgiving, we were very close. And then because of Solano County, which is not having to do anything with the teachers, we had to negotiate a second MOU having to do with distance learning so that it was better for our students, so that the learning was better for our students. It has always been for our students. Thirdly of all, I want to explain something that's going on right now. And I would like on the record this letter that I sent to the board and to our members. So I'm going to read it verbatim. Madam President and trustees of the Dixon Unified School Board, we are writing on behalf of the Dixon Teachers Association in regard to the sudden resolution presented to the community at Thursday's board meeting and formally shared with us on Friday. The DTA Executive Board, its members, and the bargaining team are chagrined to see that the board is taking such an unnecessary action, especially in light of the positive progress we saw at the negotiation table. As a side note, we spent all day Thursday negotiating with no indication at all that this was in view. That is not really straight up negotiation. That's kind of a little bit sneaky. We remind you that the DTA bargaining team, not the board's negotiation team, presented the kindergarten testing addendum number 1 on 15th of January. This was a DTA member developed idea to help better assess where our kindergarten students were. The district had not thought of nor proposed this until we gave it to them. Every one of the initial schedules for each level in hybrid learning have come from the DTA. The preschool teacher gave the district a preferred schedule via the bargaining team early this year. The first schedule for the elementary hybrid was shared on the 15th of January. The DTA gave its counter to the district on the 18th of February and the 25th of February. The first TKK hybrid schedule was presented on the 4th of February. Each of the secondary level hybrid schedules were presented to the district on the 18th of February and hastily shown at the board meeting that evening without very much corrections. DTA gave a counter proposal for these on March the 4th. We received the district's response that afternoon, and we are working on it because March the 4th was last Thursday. The initial MOU for hybrid learning was written by the DTA and presented to the district on February the 11th. We are currently completing our counter proposal to the district's response, for which we had planned to share this week. The board and the community need to know that everything that has gone on with this hybrid learning was initiated from DTA. The DTA's bargaining team has had to leave their students every week for over 10 weeks in order to work with the district. The district has spent money to pay for subs, and the students have not had their teachers in class. And now the Dixon Unified School Board District seems to willing to throw all that away in one fell swoop. The DTA feels the negotiations are close to completion and that an imposition from the board would be incredibly counterproductive. Any imposition at this point would seriously increase teacher frustration, further damage teacher morale, and completely undermine any trust in the district. Furthermore, such an imposition might create issues for next year's negotiations on contracts. DTA members have worked incredibly hard. I have worked more this year than I have in 35 years of teaching. And they continue to do so to teach our students in this unprecedented time. The emergency started last March, not now. We want the district community to know that we care deeply about our students and their families. Our focus has always been our students and their families. We want to be healthy so that we can teach our students and help our families. We are eager to return to in-person teaching under safe conditions for ourselves, our community, and our students. We ask the board members to vote against this. If you need this resolution, you can come back to it. But please have the trust and the decency to finish the negotiations with the DTA and your bargaining units. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to take Kathleen Burrows next.
Good evening. Like you, I want what's best for our students, a physically and emotionally safe learning environment. As part of the governing board, you have spent countless hours making decisions that ensure that students and staff alike are physically and emotionally safe during the pandemic. So today, I am asking you to make another important decision. Vote no on today's resolution. This resolution is draconian and therefore creates unnecessary stress on our students' teachers, as it undermines teachers' existing contract language around sick leave. There is no need to threaten teacher compensation around sick leave because the clear parameters in our contract already stipulate how sick leave must be used. Moreover, this resolution strongly implies that our certificated and classified employees want to strike and that we aren't negotiating in good faith. If you vote in favor of this resolution, parents and the community at large will infer that our teachers are hatching nefarious plans against our students, which could not be further from the truth. Dixon teachers want to safely return to our classrooms, and our bargaining team feels confident that they are close to wrapping up negotiations. Please vote against the resolution in order to continue cultivating a positive and working relationship between our teachers and Dixon Unified administrators. Dixon students deserve to have happy teachers who can rest assured that they have the support of their district administrators and governing board. Please vote no on the resolution because supporting our teachers supports our students.
Thank you, Kathleen. Katie, you're next.
Hi, my name is Katie Lavin and I work at Gretchen Higgins Elementary. And I am just confused with the March 18th date. As Mr. Dolan stated in previous meetings, Solano County has to enter the red tier and then remain in the red tier for 2 weeks before we can come back, which would make that March 22nd, meaning we would hit the red tier tomorrow. And starting with the teachers coming back. So I'm just wondering why there's such a big push on March 18th and how we even got the 18th. The second part is, as Jewel stated, is how can we set up a school overnight? She said something around that. I went into my school as of yesterday. When I was in my school yesterday, there is not one desk set up. There is not any plexiglass that is set up. The air filter is not in there. So if we're waiting and we have only 10 days, why are none of these things being prepared? The room should be ready, whether we go back the 22nd of March, we go back April 3rd. It's not even ready. So I don't get how we're supposed to get all this by March 18th. The date part is very confusing for me. And that is all I have.
Great, thank you. Eleanor, you're next.
Good evening. I just want to say that after having been employed here for 25 years, to hear our superintendent say that's not how this place operates, and then to hear what's happening from the district office side of negotiations is extremely disappointing. It's extremely disappointing that I feel like the teachers are being painted out as the bad guys or the bad people, and that we are being painted as the ones who want to strike, that we are being the ones who don't want to work. Please stop convincing the town or trying to tell the town that we don't want to work. Please tell them that we have been working, and please tell them that we need to be treated with some respect. We would appreciate that. And please vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. And Susie, I'm going to call on you next, and because the other board president got additional time, if you'd like additional time, we may have that as well.
Thank you very much. Susie Altieri, SEIU President. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Dolan. As members of SEIU, we felt compelled to inform you on our position regarding the emergency resolution being brought forth to you this evening. The revised version of this resolution names SEIU as potential employees unwilling to work based on conversations with staff and representatives from SEIU. This is misleading. These conversations have never occurred. This is an inaccurate portrayal of our members, who many have never stopped working through this pandemic. To provide you some insight on how our members have overwhelmingly and voluntarily contributed during this crisis, we would like to share the work that has occurred, with many of our members working outside their job descriptions to provide much needed services to our sites and communities. The majority of these ideas were provided by our members who thought of ways that they could contribute on their own. Other times they simply stepped up and volunteered when they saw a need. Here are a few examples of their work: distributing computers to students and families, COVID screenings for student assessments, providing support to food service to our families, grounds and maintenance work, supporting a custodial with light cleaning and disinfecting, providing families computer support through educational apps, distributing materials to students, making homework packets to be sent home, mass mailing support for district communications, vaccination clinics, student plexiglass screens for desks. Those are just a few of our examples. Our leadership team, as well as the majority of our members, have a vested interest in keeping students, staff safe when schools reopen, as they live and work in this community, and many have children in our schools. To further support our position, in your board cover page, it refers to LCAP Goal 3 that's being addressed through this resolution. Provide safe, positive environments for all. We've always bargained in good faith. We're currently working on our third MOU with the work geared towards reopening school. This work has been long and tedious with nothing but good intentions. We are still committed to completing this MOU to reopen schools, and we want our students back in person. This resolution being brought forth this evening sends a misleading message and gives the community the wrong impression that our members may refuse to work, and this is not the case. We've done our due diligence in moving forward in all phases of negotiations. Details to many of our questions have gone unanswered, which has slowed the process. And we feel that this process could have been completed by now. This resolution feels encircled and in bad faith. We urge the district to return to the table in good faith and allow the fair and due process of providing our members a safe working environment through negotiations.
Great,
The work is being done. The work that's being done now is all we've ever asked for, to reopen schools in a safe and equitable manner for all of our employees. We've shared at many board meetings our commitment to the students, our members, and our community. SEIU is asking the board to vote no on this resolution being proposed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Susie. Judy, you're next. Judy McDonald, do you have a statement or some questions for us? Okay, I'm going to move on to Sarah.
This is Sarah's husband, Perry. I just wanted to represent the parents of a few of the students in the district and say that they too have gone to extraordinary lengths above and beyond their regular job descriptions. And they've been passionately and tirelessly taking care of the children that are in desperate need of a return to normal. And there's been countless states, counties, districts, and cities that have remained open or have opened with zero transmission, zero illness, no plexiglass, no masks, that if the true concern is safety, the science is in the favor of returning to school. And this resolution puts a deadline on that so that these kids can get back to a happy and healthy environment. I support a yes vote on this resolution.
Great, thank you. Michelle, you're next.
Hi, good evening. I'm sitting here just kind of dumbfounded. I'm angry, and everyone's angry, it sounds like, but I just wonder how much longer can this truly go on? And it feels like there's going to be no end. And there's no, is there a deadline? No, there's no deadline. And hearing that 10 more days, it seems like, is that 10 more days to where we could be back in purple and then make things more difficult to open? It's my understanding that we don't have to be in red for 2 weeks. I know the rules have changed a lot, but it was my understanding that the 2-week rule went away. And I also want to say that Dixon has had no new COVID cases reported on the county dashboard since March 3rd. No new cases in Dixon in since March 3rd. That was the last time there were cases reported on the county dashboard. So the safety, all of those comments, community transmission is going down. And that is such a huge factor. And I said it 2 weeks ago, and I will say it again. Community transmission is down. Please, please, we please get our kids back to school. They desperately need it. Parents desperately need it. The relationship I have with my daughter is honestly being negatively affected because I have to sit there while I'm trying to work and supervise her education while she is struggling. Please, on behalf of parents, please make this work in a way that will create a positive relationship for everyone moving forward, whatever that has to look like. I can't say enough how much I want things to work out in a way that creates a positive environment, but that it gets our children back in school as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Teresa, you're next.
I just want to say that I do appreciate our parents who are talking about getting back to school. We certainly agree with you. The teachers and our staff are in complete agreement with this. And I understand strained relationships and how difficult it's been. I do want to say I also appreciate David Bowen speaking on behalf of teachers that this resolution is in contrary to the good faith negotiations that were very close to finishing. I feel like the resolution is blindsiding those good faith negotiations. And I do believe if we were to look at our staff, we've had a minimal days of absence, I believe, with most of our teachers. I see that the same staff is there day after day. Nobody wants to be out. We want to teach our children. We've been integral in providing those packets, a lot of times delivering those packets. And we know that in person is what's best for our children. But we do want to have good faith negotiations on both sides. We can't paint one side as being the villain and, oh, we've got to protect ourselves just in case they completely change their minds. Our negotiations have led to us reopening. We were very close in November. As Kathy Michaels presented, we had to renegotiate when we went back in purple. Let's go back to that good faith negotiations on all sides. Let's leave this resolution to the side so that we can complete the 10 days of negotiations. And I fully believe that we will be back in school in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Judy, you're next.
Hi there. Sorry about that last situation. I am speaking because I feel that the resolution has changed the tenor of all of this. It's been a struggle for students. It's been a struggle for teachers. hey, it's been our first pandemic. But what I feel is paramount tonight is that this has come out of nowhere. And as I heard Eleanor Prock-Smith say earlier, in her 25 years, it's never been this contentious. And frankly, I agree with her, only I've been here a whole lot longer. This is year 32 for me. And to think that something would come out saying that teachers might be talking about a work stoppage, when in fact, if that's happened, I haven't talked to one teacher who's heard about that. So to put that in a document that implies that teachers don't want to come back, there's nothing more that teachers want to do. And now that teachers are having access to vaccines, even more so, we're looking forward to coming back. We want kids in the classroom. That's why we signed on to do this job, is to be around kids. So parents, I understand your pain and I understand the struggle. It's not that we don't want to come back, and the fact that the district is trying to make it look like we have a problem coming back and that we would organize a work stoppage is gaslighting. I would suggest that between it coming out during elementary school conferences, when this came out of nowhere, the feedback we've gotten from DTA is that negotiations have been moving along, and that it came out while elementary school teachers had 10 or 11 conferences throughout their day, is enough to say that this was a concerted effort on the district to make teachers look bad. I would say, please say no to this resolution. Give us a chance to do what we've been doing so well. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Elizabeth, you're next.
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying I'm super nervous. So if I don't get my point across, I'm sorry. But I'm a senior in high school and I have 4 periods a day. I've talked to all 4 of my teachers. All of them want to be back in person. But as having 4 periods, I wake up at 8:30 when my class starts. And then I set a timer for when my class ends 5 minutes before it ends. And then I wake up again from a nap and I leave that class. Then I set another timer to join my next class. I stay in that class for the required time till 5 minutes before I leave that class. I do the same thing for my 3rd and 4th period. And at about midnight, I finish all my work for the day and start it for the next day. I stay up till 3 or 4 a.m. every single night. And the only thing that gets me out of bed is having to go babysit siblings and my cousins, and the fact that I have animals to take care of. Other than that, I wouldn't get out of bed. And I've opened up to a lot of my teachers, or really most of them listen and care. I've also reached out to my principal. My principal knows I talk to her quite often. I talk to my vice principal, and I've even sent emails to all my past teachers telling them that they're appreciated and that we all care for them and that we want to be back in person, but like, just keep pushing through. You're almost there. We're almost back to in person. And so to hear that the teachers don't want to go back after, I'm sure I'm not the only student who tells my teachers that they're appreciated. It's kind of sad to hear that. And then I'll reiterate what I said in November when my best friend committed suicide. This isn't how it's supposed to be. And I had plenty of support back then when I spoke up about mental illness and friends committing suicide. I had plenty of support then, and teachers telling us that it'd get better, we'd go back to class. But that still hasn't happened, and it keeps getting pushed back and further and further. And if you keep giving us false hope, then there are going to be way more suicides than there already are. And by talking to my peers who also feel the same way, I don't think pushing this back is going to make it any better. And we were told one schedule, try it out, see how it goes. If it doesn't work, we'll revisit it. We'll go back to it. So try this schedule out, see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll go back to it. If you can say the same thing to a bunch of teenagers, then I feel like adults should be able to try something out, go back to it. If it doesn't work, if it's not working out, then we can choose to not be in person anymore. But I don't think that staying out of school is going to help any of the kids.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Jamie, you're next.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you to those people who have spoken their first times at a meeting like this. I know that's hard to do, and it's an important thing to do, that we're all here and that we all care. I gotta be honest, you know, I have a vested interest in my wife and in the union, and that's clear to people who know me that I am going to support them 100%. So my comments here, I'm going to try to direct as best as possible. President O'Halloran said that the union and DUSD about the negotiations, that passing this does not preclude negotiations from being conducted moving forward. However, as I've heard, it's clear to everyone here, it does preclude trust in this negotiations process, which I think is felt by everybody who is questioning what's going on right now. There is no trust between people here. And that trust is begun and established by the people at the top. They trust Superintendent Dolan to do his job, to give them the information they need to make a decision. And the teachers trust that the board members are able to appropriately parse that information and make a decision that is in the best interest for everyone. I find it really hard to look at this, what's going on, and not wonder how we got here, and not wonder how we're not questioning the integrity of a man who's married to somebody who's in the union, who says in the same meeting as Ms. O'Halloran that they, with the passing of this resolution, can fire a teacher for any reason, including rumor or allegation. That doesn't set the posture that we need as the community to return. That doesn't send the correct message. And we would be crazy if we didn't wonder where this was all coming from and how a man who's married to somebody in the union isn't privy to this information and making judgments about people that he hears in rumor. So if you pass and you vote for this resolution, you are passing for a resolution that gives power to somebody who can fire you based on what they hear, on allegation and or rumor. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your commitment to this community, and I hope that you make the correct decision here.
Thank you, Jamie. Holly, you're next.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking my comments. I'm going to just speak on behalf of my own daughter and my situations. I don't want to go back and forth with the teacher things. I don't really understand how all of the negotiations work, but as a parent, I feel like the negotiations have been going on and on and on, and I don't understand what 10 more days will do for the negotiations. When Elizabeth spoke a minute ago, I have a daughter just like that. She's a great student. She's getting great grades, but the social, emotional, and the mental well-being of her isn't good. It's not great right now. She doesn't get dressed anymore. She barely gets out of her bed to do school. And that's not okay for our teenagers. That's not okay for our kids. This has been going on for a year. We've been negotiating, it seems like, since August, and I feel like something has to be done now. Every week I have another friend or somebody I know leaving the district. How many kids can we afford to have leave our district with other districts opening up all around us? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Holly. Jesse, you're next.
Thanks, everybody. First of all, I want to say that I think everybody agrees classrooms are where kids belong, classrooms are where teachers belong. We are all on the same page there. I love seeing all the teachers with their let us work backgrounds. I think it is clear that the situation that we are in now is so much better and so much different than it was at the beginning of this school year or a year ago. Teachers are ready to go back into the classroom largely from what I'm hearing. So I'm super glad about that. Don't love this proposal that you guys are voting on tonight. It is a blank check on a preemptive state of emergency until rescinded by the board. That is what we're talking about, giving the board power in this state of emergency to make these kind of decisions until they decide that it's good enough. A preemptive state of emergency. We're not there yet, but just in case. Teacher contracts include leave that is appropriate for their positions. They are people and they deserve to be able to take a sick day. If they need a sick day, they deserve to be able to take care of their families. They're not asking for extra leave, just asking for the leave that they are already contractually obligated to. Please don't take that away by passing this resolution. If you don't expect work stoppage to happen, this resolution is absolutely unnecessary. Negotiations have been complex, as has been stated multiple times. Yes, negotiations have been going on for a year, but in that year, negotiating on different things at different times in different situations, I do believe that they're close. And if you mean to say about getting kids back into class in a meaningful way, where teachers and students can have the kind of relationship and powerful education experience, please, no room in Zoom. Work with your teachers. Let them teach their kids in person. Let them teach their kids online. Don't try to make them do it both at once. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. Nancy, you're next.
Thank you, Catlin. This is Spencer, Nancy's husband. Resolution or no resolution, I'm not here to debate. I'm just here to say there's been mistakes made, honestly, probably on both sides. And at the end of the day, there's negotiations that are continuing, but it doesn't seem like much headway is coming out of it. As a parent, I'll be honest with you, my son Brandon, he's a senior, and he's been accepted to the college of his choice, and he's going to be fine. But as a community member, it's important that the community is strong with an educational system that's in place that people can actually feel comfortable with. And right now, there's just a lot of people that are not feeling comfortable. And for one reason or another, we just have to come together. And what that means is both sides are going to have to compromise. It's in the best interest of our kids. It needs to be done. This has gone on long enough. Okay? Just work together, get it figured out. I'm not here to talk about resolution. I'm here to talk about solution. Okay? I'm a business owner. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you need to make a decision. And once you make the decision, you stand behind it. Once again, right, wrong, or indifferent. These are times that most of us have never even experienced. There are going to be mistakes, okay? We're human. It's how you're able to critically think and get beyond the mistake, figure out solutions. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to preach. I've never spoke up in this manner, but I honestly think both sides need to step up and get this figured out, but more importantly, timely, okay? My son, hey, his senior year is what it is. He's made the most of it, and he'll continue to be successful from today and on forward. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of kids that are suffering out there. So let's just get it figured out. It's time to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, when we do negotiate, it's to get something done. It's not to push each other's buttons. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Heidi, you're next.
Hi, I'm at Target right now, so I got my mask on in the line here. But I just wanted to make a couple of points. I've heard a lot of people tonight say that negotiations are taking so long, and that's what they keep hearing, and that's not true at all. Yeah, we've been negotiating since March, but again, we negotiated 3 different contracts because we've been in 3 different things, right? Like at first we were going to go back, then we couldn't go back, then we did hybrid, then we needed to change it. Like we haven't been negotiating this one thing this whole time, like at all. And I feel like people are really missing that point. And for this just to be put on us, like I want to know like what's going to happen when people really do take real leaves, right? Like there's a lot of people in our district that have autoimmune diseases or other things that they cannot work until they're fully vaccinated. And a lot of those teachers will need to take that time off. And it's like, they'll have doctor's notes, but to say like, if my kid gets sick tomorrow, that you're going to come and look for me because you heard, that I talk at board meetings and that, I'm going to get fired because I could be out trying to make a work stoppage is absolutely ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. I don't like distance learning. I work harder now than I ever have in my whole entire life. I cannot wait to get back into my classroom. I'm a science teacher. It's hard to do it over the computer. Okay. But it's like, sometimes we have to take leaves for things, and to tell us like that we're, going to get in trouble for this or that when we, get leaves, like it's just absolutely demeaning and just so ridiculous. And it literally, I have not been able to eat or sleep or think about anything else since that came out. Like I am so utterly insulted. I really am. And to think that, then to tell us that you guys think we're doing such a good job and you think this and that. No, you don't. You obviously think we're going to strike when we are coming to the end of a negotiation like this. We're negotiating coming back to school. We haven't been able to come back to school, people. It's not Dixon Unified's fault. It's not the teacher's fault. We've been in a purple tier and now we're moving to a red tier and we're going to go back to school, but we need to do it safely and everybody needs to agree. That's how life works. And I don't see what the problem is here. And I want the community to know that this is not our fault. This is no one's fault. We are in a pandemic that's killing people and we haven't been able to go back to school yet. So please stop putting blame on us. Stop putting blame on even the district. The district's fault, not their fault either. Okay. We're going back to school. We're going to negotiate it. Why are you doing this to us? Please do not do this to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Nicole, you're next.
Thank you, Heidi. I support everything that you said. I also want to thank Spencer Bay for what he said, which was work together. That's what we've been trying to do. We are so close to reaching our goals of getting back to school, and we should continue to work together. And I'd like to piggyback on what Judy McDonald said, that this resolution changes the tenor of the relationship that we have with the board and with Brian and the negotiations, and throws negativity and mistrust on the table. Did you hear the high school student just say that what she heard through this meeting is that, quote, teachers don't want to go back? That is the message that you are giving the community, and it's wrong. Brian even said that that's not the message, but that's what the community is hearing. We want to go back. We offered schedules for you to approve to let us come back. Teachers have hustled and figured out for ourselves and amongst each other how to get vaccinated so that we could go back. How many of us have gotten our vaccines on a Friday afternoon or on a Saturday morning so that we can plan to give up our weekends to get them and to recover from what effects we might have from them rather than miss a day of school? It's as if you don't know us. It's as if you don't know what we are doing. It's as if you don't respect us one bit. And just to clarify to the community, this meeting is not about teachers wanting to come back to school or not. We want to go back. It is about the district, in my opinion, throwing teachers under the bus by suggesting to the community that we have had any intention of striking. I have never heard of this. The only one who suggested it, as far as I know, is the board and Brian with this proposed resolution. When I read the proposed resolution, that is the very first I ever heard of it. And I'm in a lot of different groups throughout the district. I encourage you to vote no and to honor the teachers and show us that you respect us and trust us like you say that you do. And that Brian says he respects us, but shows that he doesn't by proposing this resolution. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Teresa, I think you already spoke on this item. So I'm going to pass you and go on to Michelle.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Irwin. I am a teacher at Dixon High. And I want to say I completely agree with how a lot of teachers have been speaking out against this resolution. But I'd also like to bring into fact that not even all teachers are fully vaccinated yet. And yet we're being told that we all of a sudden have to go back at this time and that we will potentially be punished or fired for taking time off in order to finish getting vaccinated. As Nicole said, I took time out of my Saturday to get my vaccine. And I would also like to mention that the first time I even got any notification of me even being able to be vaccinated was not until March 3rd, all right? And so I took the very first appointment I could on Saturday, and I can't even get my second vaccine until next month. And so now all of a sudden teachers are going to be punished for trying to keep the community safe. I'm sorry that I don't want to put my students, whom I care very deeply for, in risk, you know, and not only that, but also my family. I didn't sign up to be a teacher so that I could expose my family to potential viruses, a pandemic that our country has been fighting for who knows how long. And yet now I'm being told that I could potentially be fired for trying to protect my family and myself. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Thank you, Michelle. Jezebel?
I just wanted to say that I agree with Heidi and Ms. Du Bois as well. I am a mom of 2 little girls, and when I read what was put out, that if my kids get sick, I need to call in sick. That's what we have the days for, and it scares me really bad to think that I might get fired for that because I'm lying, because I have to take care of my own kids. That's what sick days were for. Also, I'm really astonished. I want my students to come back. I really do. I miss them. I miss all of my kids. I am working twice as hard trying to provide meaningful physical education lessons, and it's really hard. And trying to go back and teach in person in Zoom while I'm teaching PE is going to be insane. The weather outside, you know, how are my kids at home going to be able to listen to what I have to say when there's a wind coming through? How are they going to do that? But to me, the most important thing is I don't want to be punished. I want to go back to school. I really do. I want things to be back to normal. I really do. But this is a pandemic. This is not normal. And we all want to go back. And so it's not our fault. It's not our teacher's fault. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jezebel. Mrs. Matson?
Hi, so my name is Mrs. Matson and I teach at Main Prairie High School, and I very, very, very much want to see my students again, their faces. And I've spoken about this before. It's rather ironic that March 18th is when I'm supposed to get my vaccine. They give you your second date and second shot. They give you the date and time, and they've given me a time that conflicts with what this resolution is stating. And it would be really unfortunate that in trying to do everything that I can to see my kiddos again, that it might be perceived that I am doing something that is in the opposite direction of that. I'm just so confused and so hurt.
Thank you. Molly?
Hello, everybody. My name is Molly McNeil, and I have been a teacher in this district for 20 years. And I'm going to get emotional because yesterday morning, when I was sitting at my mom's, taking care of her, getting my report cards ready for my Zoom conferences today, I had 10, and trying to get my Google Classroom assignments ready for the week, I opened up an email with the proposed resolution and it punched me in my gut. This is not who we are. I am a Dixon High School graduate. My daughter is a Dixon High School graduate. My mother is a Dixon High School graduate. My grandmother is a Dixon High School graduate. I love Dixon Unified. I mean, anybody who knows my history knows that I stand behind this district. I don't stand behind this resolution. I am sad. I am hurt. I am, even my dog's upset. I don't know if you hear her, but I am telling you, this is not who we are. If this is not necessary, as Brian said, that he doesn't think it's going to come down to this because this isn't who we are, why send it out? Why not allow us to continue to work together to do what is right for the kids and for the educators? I am a big proponent of mental health, the mental health of our students, the mental health of the staff, everyone in the staff. This is not the way to promote our mental health and to take care of your teachers and to take care of your students. No, it is not okay. We are not to be treated this way. It is not, we are professionals. We are humans. We work together. For Elizabeth to say that she doesn't think that teachers want to come back to work, my gosh, girl, I want nothing more than to be in a classroom with my second graders. I want to be able to be present for them. I want to be able to teach them, and I want to be able to do the very best job that I can do for them. Do I think that rooming and Zooming is the way to do it? No. But if that is what is proposed, am I going to show up every day and do my best? You betcha. I can't even, I don't speak at board meetings. You've never seen me raise my virtual hand, but tonight I did, because this is not the way we go about things here in Dixon Unified. It's just not. So I am asking you all to vote no. This is not who we are. And if we don't need it, don't threaten it. Don't. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Russo, you're next.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to stay focused on the resolution, specifically the last paragraph on page 2, under concerted refusals to work by district employees. My recommendation is that you strike that paragraph through the 4th paragraph on page 4. Just strike it from the resolution. If it requires another resolution to be written, because I don't know the procedural rules, but I think it would be best to strike all of that section that I just referred to, because it seems like this was put in the 11th hour. This resolution was referenced in the last board meeting, but not in this way. The only part of the resolution that was referenced in last Thursday's board meeting was the particulars about just coming back on certain days and the hybrid models. And I believe in that board meeting, it was discussed that, yes, schedules are still being worked out in negotiations. So it's highly suspect that the last paragraph in page 2 through that 4th paragraph in page 4 is even in this resolution. That's kind of disconcerting. Next item would be specifically on page 3, where it says the superintendent talks about employees are not allowed to use sick time, personal necessity days, and other authorized leaves when it is apparent that an employee is participating in some type of concerted work stoppage. Who determines whether it's concerted or not? Personal necessity days are in the contract, and there's already language dealing with that, unless we're circumventing the contract completely or we're circumventing parts of the contract. Then Mr. Dolan also said in significant numbers when he was making his statement going through this. He said work stoppage in significant numbers. what is significant numbers? That's a term that has no definition, significant numbers. And apparent to whom? The employees, the employers, the board, the district, personnel office. Who determines what is apparent and what's not? And again, what are significant numbers? Is there an actual number attached to that? Because what's significant to one person may not be significant to another. But back to my first statement, go ahead and strike those paragraphs that I referenced. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Kelly, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. Kelly Chavez. I work in special ed. I'm also the vice president of SEIU. I just wanted to speak for a moment tonight and let you know that we are all in a hardship in this, at the district, in both unions and as a community. And I agree wholeheartedly that we all need a chance to come together. Everybody also knows that I'm a proponent for mental health for, you know, various reasons. And I just wanted to say that, you know, getting everybody back to some sort of normalcy in school and figuring out to how to get kids back in a safe way for all of us is at the forefront of everybody's agenda. That's my belief. And it should be a celebration for our community. And tonight doesn't feel like a celebration whatsoever. And I wanted to say that the district does not only employ teachers, but certified and classified, and we're all working together with a common goal to get kids back. And so I would encourage you all to please vote no on the resolution and give us an opportunity to do so on behalf of all sides and our community, and, you know, just in the best interests of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Aimee, you're next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Echeverria here. You know, I feel like I have a lot of things to say, but I'll definitely try to keep it short, right? I think that it is important to just put out there that, you know, this has been an entire year of uncertainty because we all suffered through the exact same pandemic, right? Like, and I think it's important to take into consideration that we are still in a pandemic, you know, and as someone who, you know, I completely understand wanting to get the children, you know, wanting to get our students back. And I am completely, you know, for doing it in a safely manner. And I think that that's, you know, the word I want to highlight is safe manner, right? Because, you know, I hear, you know, it being said, well, other districts have already opened. I know of districts that have not decided to open until they are in orange, because that is safer for everyone that is involved, right? And I think it's important to take into the consideration that exactly for people who have not gotten the second vaccine, like my second vaccine will be scheduled for after that start date, which makes me feel pretty uneasy, right? And I don't think I don't think that I should feel that way as an employee of this district, right? As a parent, my son is going to stay in distance learning because of the fact that, you know, I have had 2 members of my family pass away due to COVID, right? And so it really does hit home. And I think it's important that I, just like the teachers and just like all of the classified units, we have families that we go home to. Like my son is staying in distance learning because my parents are the ones that watch him. And if my dad were to he, you know, he has rheumatoid arthritis and the medication he takes specifically lowers his immune system. So I have no doubt that if he were to get COVID, he would not be here. And that's not a risk that I'm willing to take, right? And I just feel that it is important to keep that into consideration, that we're all here for wanting the children to, you know, to return. But I think the safety portion of it is the biggest thing. And especially, you know, as was mentioned, right? There have been questions that have been asked at board meetings at the table that have gone unanswered, that make it difficult for us to feel as if, you know, as if we would be returning in the safest way possible. And I think that, you know, like Kelly said, right? Like we're all part of the same community. And the whole point is to keep each other safe, right? Because my interaction with someone else's student or someone else's parent could have an effect on what they go home with or what I go home with. So it only makes sense that you are going to negotiate with the people who are indeed serving the students, who are at the forefront, right, of this whole ordeal. And, you know, I for sure, you know, push to vote no on this, because I don't think that this resolution is at all in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Erin, you're next.
Hi, I'm Erin Brothers. My two boys go to Anderson. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate how deeply Mr. Russo actually looked at the resolution, because we don't all have that in front of ourselves, you know, just sitting in front of us. And I really think it's important that you take into consideration what both of the unions are saying. As a parent, I want to make sure that you know that we are not all blaming teachers or you know, the rest of the staff and administration for not being back in school. I have spoken before at one of these meetings, and sometimes it feels like it doesn't matter that we have comments, or that the teachers have comments, or that the staff have comments, because it seems like certain members of the school board already have their minds made up. And I would just like you to really pay attention to what kind of trust building and trust breaking methods you're taking with respect to the relationships that need to be cultivated to create a positive space to send our kids back to. My son has type 1 diabetes, and I still want him to go back to school. I want him to be safe. I want the teachers to be safe. And I want the staff to be safe. And I want to make sure that they feel like they've been listened to and not like they're being threatened. And I don't know why this resolution is necessary if you say it isn't. And as a parent, I respectfully ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Gary, you're next.
Thank you for, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to everybody that goes along with here. I had a couple points. We, you know, us as SEIU for the last few weeks that are part of the leadership team that has worked with Brian and Cindy and talked with several managers trying to come up with a plan. And I don't know if this has been said as much before, because there's a lot of people that have spoken tonight. And the word I used right there was plan. The problem is that I don't feel that we have a plan. The plan is to, the only plan I've heard so far is to force everybody to come back to work. That's not a plan. That's the only plan there is. There's no plan given out to everybody. We have kind of a guess at what the hybrid model will look like, but I, as a parent and my kid being in the high school, I don't know what my kid's gonna look like. Is he gonna go to school for a half a day? Is he gonna go to school for 2 hours? Is he gonna be Zooming sometimes during the day? Am I gonna have to drive him home in the middle of the day and take time out of my lunch to get him home or take a break? I mean, there's no plan. There's nothing given out there that says, this is what we want to do. And I think both of us labor unions here have asked for a plan. We have asked for a plan time and time again so that we understand where we're going. We're not asking that we're not going to come back to work. Nobody has said that I've heard from SEIU. I haven't heard kids even say that. I have heard we want to come back, and SEIU members have been back. I wanted to also point out that this system that you guys have for us saying what we want to say, and then you spend the time doing answering our questions, doesn't allow for any kind of rebuttal. Last week I spoke that I felt that what some of the decisions that were being made was counterintuitive and breaking the contract. And Mr. Dolan's response was, no, we're not breaking any contract. Well, that doesn't answer the question. That doesn't answer the thing. And it certainly doesn't give me a chance to point out where Mr. Dolan might be wrong. Not to say that he was wrong. I'm just saying that this system needs to be improved, and there should be some kind of rebuttal that goes along with the answers given to the people, because we are in a democratic, semi-democratic, semi-republic system here. This is not a militant option for us to go through. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Adrian, you're next.
Sorry, Adrian Colson's next?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. I guess I'd start by saying I think that in the long run, everything is going to be okay. But, and that is not to minimize the difficult challenges that we face, that the times are extraordinarily difficult for teachers and students, administrators, and of course, parents and families. But I would like to chime in with everybody else who's mentioned that there is no hint or whiff of talk of strikes or work stoppages. That is a total misrepresentation of us as teachers. I've always wanted to go back to school. I'm already having kids come after school for band conditioning. What has kept us from having students in person is not teachers, and it's not the administration, it's the tier that we are in for Solano County. This resolution clearly paints teachers as the bad guys, that we are planning to plot against the safety and well-being. It is outrageous. I started by saying, I think everything will be okay in the long run, but this is disgusting. Just absolutely a disgusting offense to all teachers. That should be made totally clear. It is not right. I please vote no on this resolution.
Thank you, Adrian. Is there any other public comment this evening? All right, Betsy, go ahead.
Hi, I don't know if this has been spoken to before. I just joined, so unfortunately I missed the very beginning. As a substitute, I'm not represented by DTA, and I'm not privy to any negotiations that happen. I didn't read the resolution until a fellow parent and teacher asked me to have a look at it. And when I read it, it looks like the district is kind of unilaterally deciding on the contract. And, I don't understand how emergency resolutions work. And I think that it's important to have that explained. If I missed that, again, I apologize. I think that it does imply that the expectation is that staff are not willing to come back. And I think that it seems very preemptive, but again, I'm not privy to negotiations, and I don't know what has been said behind closed doors. I do think that having something like this put out there, it's very confusing to us as parents, and it is slightly confusing to school staff because it looks as though the district is not negotiating in good faith. And so I would very much like to have that explained. If it previously was, again, I apologize. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betsy. Teresa, I think you've already spoken on this item, so
can I make just one more comment?
you may not. I'm sorry. We have a procedure so that we can get everybody speaking, but you can certainly submit your comment in writing. I would be happy to read that over email. Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak this evening? All right, I'm going to close public comment and we're going to go through, there were some questions this evening and I want to go through those so we can get some answers for folks who are listening. The first question, Brian, that I had was red tier. So if 2 weeks, if it was 2 weeks in red tier, the first part of this question was sort of when did the 2 weeks start?
Yeah, so good question. And what was announced last Tuesday was that the preceding week qualified us with red conditions in the purple tier, right? Red conditions in the purple tier at the week that concluded last Tuesday. I think it actually might have been Sunday to Sunday, but the announcements are made on Tuesday. So that's not how the school districts in Solano County at least anticipated announcements being made. I actually had pressed for some real clarity to come to us regarding this progress towards being in the red tier. The other issue that was clarified was that at this time, and this runs counter to previous guidance, but at this time, the 2 weeks in the purple tier with red conditions, that triggers the transition to the red tier. And after that, there's no waiting period for schools to reopen as there previously was. So quite literally, if tomorrow an announcement is made that Solano County has entered the red tier, which based on the trends we expect will happen, not a guarantee, but we expect will happen, then schools who wish to open in the red tier would be eligible to on Wednesday of this week. Right? So in essence, over time, the process has become more rapid. I think is a fair way to describe it.
Got it. Okay, and then the second part of Katie's question was, why aren't rooms ready?
The amount of legwork.
Ryan, I can take it.
Oh, go ahead, Mark. Thank you.
So 2 quick things. One is she asked about, I think she said filters, but I think she meant air purifiers. So maintenance delivered all the air purifiers to the classrooms. I will verify that hers is there, does need to be taken out of the box and set up. No, we have not set up desks yet, although we are starting that along with delivering PPE. So we didn't want to set things up too much because then we got to store things in the meantime. So anyway, air filters have been changed. The purifier should be in the room. The hand sanitizer has been installed, and we will set up desks with 6 foot distancing, and Gretchen Higgins, along with Anderson and Tremont, have had their plexiglass already sent to the school. So that just needs to be set on the desk.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
The next question I had was from Michelle, who asked, is there a deadline for return to school?
So technically not. We do fully intend to meet the requirements or I guess the requirements for the help me out, the in-person return to school grant. So this was an agreement that was approved by the legislature last Thursday and signed by the governor on Friday. And under the provisions of this grant, which again is now law, for districts to open in the red tier, if they have all of their elementary school students So for us, that would be TK through 5, and at least a grade level between the middle and high schools, then they qualify for the fullest level of funding under this grant opportunity. The duty, the obligation is to be reopened with all those grade levels no later than March 31st. The projected funding level that Dixon Unified, would receive in meeting those conditions would be just about $955,000. So this is money that would support the reopening process and ongoing efforts in distance learning. That money would not have to be fully expended until June 30th of 2022. So there's a nice long-term opportunity to spend down those dollars. There is a 1% penalty that a district incurs for each day after March 31st. So again, for us, that would be about $9,500 for each day that we didn't incur. You can meet the requirements under purple tier as well, in case we were not to get out of red. In that circumstance, you have to have TK through 2nd grade in place and address your special populations, primarily students with disabilities, but also can apply to fostering homeless youth, English learners, and students who are just at risk of performing under grade level.
Great. Okay, and then I'm going to sort of lump some questions together that were around the same topic. Jamie, Michelle, Jezebel, and Steve Russo all had questions related to the resolution and whether or not teachers could get fired for rumor, allegation, getting a vaccine, or taking care of their children.
The simple answer is no. No. No one can be fired simply for participating, if there were concerted work effort, no one can be fired for that. For participating in a sick out or a one-day strike, any of those types of activities. Firing permanent certificated employees is an extremely complicated, lengthy process. And the circumstances that we're talking about here do not rise to that level in any way, shape, or form. There's no penalty under any circumstances in this if a person is ill. During a stoppage, as an example, we would ask that they would verify that they were ill, which is not a unique occurrence through a regular business in the district. Circumstances warrant that verification at times, and I'm sure we've got people who are in this meeting who have been party to that kind of requirement. This is not a prohibition on using your sick time if you're sick, or going to an appointment, or a vaccination, or a root canal, or your child's medical appointment. This does not throw out contract or law. It addresses the circumstances that we don't expect around these concerted refusals to work.
Thank you. And then, let's see, Gary had a question for the process for the rebuttal, and I'll just, since we've adopted some rules that we're really trying to follow, if you don't like the response to your answer, you're free to email us and we can respond in that way. We're trying to provide opportunity for as many people to comment and public comment as possible and still get meetings done at a reasonable time. So.
And I just add, you won't find standard practice districts, city councils, anyone where there is a back and forth between a member of the audience questioning and exchanging answers to try to see what the truth is in the end. Speakers have one opportunity.
And in fact, it's prohibited in terms of the back and forth.
Yes, it is actually, yes.
So the last actual question that I have on here was Betsy's regarding how do emergency resolutions work.
So as I tried to explain before, but merits repeating, this emergency resolution, so this is a resolution to address an emergency. It's actually not an emergency resolution, technically speaking. The title of it, let me go back to my front page. If my fingers will work. There we go. Well, I guess it is actually labeled emergency resolution. I apologize for that. And that is in the event of a concerted refusal to work. So the emergency that this resolution addresses is the possible concerted refusal to work, right? So that's the nature of the emergency, because in the recitals establish this, that as does some of the language in the resolution portion itself, that not having an adequate number of employees available brings into question the safety, security, and basic functioning of the educational program. That's the emergency if it occurs. And so this resolution provides, again, the superintendent of schools with the board's authority to respond to that emergency. So a true emergency situation, which is rare, the board does not have to provide notice for a meeting. It could be that there was a natural disaster in the area. So want to make sure that people don't confuse that that provision, and that's in the Brown Act, that you can have a meeting without notice when it is truly an emergency. This is again preemptively declaring an emergency should the issue at the heart of this arise actually develop.
Okay. And do you have anything else that I missed on in terms of public comment questions?
No, I don't. No, I think, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity most of all, just to say, this in no way creates a situation where we start docking people or moving to remove people from employment. Any of those types of things are heavily restricted under law. And even the type of situation here regarding work stoppage or other concerted efforts do not result in those types of disciplinary actions.
I wanted to ask a question, and then I'll open for other board questions as well. I heard a lot of folks tonight speak that I highly respect, and have thought a lot about this as well. And I think my feeling around this resolution has been that exactly as Lloyd said, we need kids back in school. And we need to set a date. I heard so much from parents this evening that the uncertainty, and from students, the uncertainty is really difficult, and we need to set a date to do this. And I believe that's why we are calling for this resolution. What I heard tonight, though, is some concern around the second half of it, where we address the strike issue. And so I guess my question is, procedurally, is there a way, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm actually asking the question.
Sure.
Procedurally, is there a way that we could re-emphasize our date to reopen and remove the language that seems to be pulling us from our mission to reopen? I heard teachers tonight say they want to come back to school. I heard kids say they want their teachers back in school. The classified staff has been here. They are not coming back. They have been here. And I want our schools to open. And so, that's my question. Is there a way to pull out the portion which seems to have become offensive and focus on the fact that our schools are going to open on March 18th, provided that we're in red, and we need to do everything, including getting the classrooms ready and getting the MOUs resolved for that to happen, but that's going to happen, and that you can bank on it. Is there a way to do that and remove that second part of it, or is there not?
I think I would advise against that, actually. This resolution is not developed internally. It is developed by our legal counsel, and we do not have the capacity to address that. I suppose that we could, as Mr. Russo suggested, end with the in-person instruction to commence on March 18th paragraph, and then strike the concerted refusals to work. He didn't suggest this, but I think it would have to go with it. The employee participation in a refusal to work and or strike. Remove those two pieces from the resolution. And then I think we would probably also, at that point in time, want to strike the idea, the title, emergency resolution in the event of a concerted refusal. Because if the resolution text itself does not refer to that, it's not proper to have that in the title. So I'll tell you, doing that on the fly without advice or direction from legal counsel concerns me. I think I know what would be okay, but I cannot be sure of that, especially that there are provisions after that. So my recommendation would be not to modify or amend this resolution as it currently stands. Let me add a couple of points, if I may. So we can call a special meeting with 24 hours notice, publish that agenda with that time covered, and address any issues that quickly. So we could not hold a special meeting tomorrow unless it was going to begin. Right now, it would have to be at, give me a half hour to get an agenda together, right? And what time is it anyway? I got messages showing on my watch at the time. So it's about 7 o'clock. So let's say if I could post an agenda by 7:30 tonight, we can hold a meeting after 7:30 tomorrow. So our ability to turn around quickly, and I'm not proposing that we hold a special meeting tomorrow to revise this because legally we need a little bit of time. However, what we heard repeatedly here tonight was let us finish, right? Heard that from employees, we heard that from union leaders in the formal positions, as well as informal as well. We heard let us finish. And as you said, Catlin, we heard from a lot of people. Well, I think I was struck by people we don't ever see or hear from in these meetings, right? That certainly made an impression upon me. We've certainly through this process identified, I think further identified the urgency around completing the negotiations process. And if anyone hears that and thinks this was some stunt to do this tonight or a ploy, I can assure you we've all got too many other things to do than to put on a performance here for you. We also, I'll say this. This item didn't come forward without my understanding that it would be challenging, that would upset people. That's part of my job is sometimes to bring those types of things forward. We did layoff resolutions last week. Another example, it's there are tough calls to make, and we consulted with legal on this, and in the end, we're here tonight to consider this. We have an obligation to listen and to consider what we hear, and I will say that I am comfortable with the board tonight if they say time out. Not this is going away forever, But let's pretend we all live in Missouri and it's shown a time. And that's applies to everybody involved in the process. That is not showing unions. That is showing district management. That is showing Ryan, the superintendent of schools, because I'm where the ultimate authority here for our operations. It's showing district negotiations team, and it's showing both labor groups. And again, the fact of the matter is that we can call a special meeting with 24 hours notice, right? I think that that preserves, if the board were to table this tonight, we preserve our right to bring this resolution back. I think after this evening, there is certainly more understanding with what it means than there was before we came in here tonight. I'm still concerned that there's misunderstanding or inaccurate interpretations that exist, and I hope the question period helped clarify that, but I'm afraid it won't entirely. The board is within its right to say, let's hold off on this tonight, but we're going to reserve our right to bring it back. The board is within its right to say, Brian, go and get this modified so we can put something on the record regarding some elements of this. And we'll talk to legal, we'll send them a text tonight and then talk to legal beginning in the morning and turn that around as quickly as we can. I think that if we want to get open and we want to be able to access the full amount of the in-person instruction grant, we got to keep moving on the timeline you said.
Lloyd, go ahead.
I hesitate to remove my mask, but I think I need to.
I think you should. Yeah. Thank you.
First off, I think I'm just speaking for myself, not the rest of the board, but I suspect the rest of the board feels the same way. That we desperately want to see our kids have in-person instruction with their teachers. And we're hoping we're going to do that in a timely manner and before the entire year is gone. I've heard comments from teachers that somehow we're blaming you, or it's not your fault, or not. I can tell you right now, I've been on the board since April. The district administration and board members, to the letter, have always said the same thing about the teachers and the staff of Dixon Unified. And that is, they have the highest praise for the teaching staff. They've never criticized the teachers, ever. They like the teachers. But you can see there's a trust issue in the surface, and this is caused by the pandemic. The pandemic has caused our society to go bonkers. You know, there's no common sense anymore. There's no common sense solution. Somebody tonight said, we need solutions, make a decision. We're trying to make solutions and make a decision. And I hope the teachers heard that loud and clear, that we need to get this resolved so that our students can have the world-class education they deserve. But I also believe that this resolution, as currently written, could be cause a morale problem. And that I can't. I'm not here. I think I started off originally saying that I believe in the collective bargaining system. So that's philosophically built in me. DJ is also believes in the collective bargaining system. But we can't have this thing drag on for 2 more years. And I'm hoping that in the next 10 days that the union and the administration negotiation teams can get together and do something for the good of the kids. And so with that thought in mind, I would suggest that you go back and rewrite this thing, and therefore I move to table this matter until March 18th. And to table a matter requires a second. It's not debatable, requires a majority vote.
If I may, not to limit it, Lloyd, for reconsideration till March 18th. Till March 18th, or unless a special meeting is called. Something to that effect. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Cool, go ahead.
Well, I just want to go back to something that I heard, I think when Cindy was speaking, that whether we pass this resolution or whether we pass an amended resolution in the near future, it doesn't preclude negotiating, even if we were to sign the resolution. And maybe I'm mistaken, but that's what I heard.
You're right.
Other board member thoughts?
Like the second Lloyd's motion?
All right, there are actually two motions on the floor right now. Do you want to withdraw your first motion? Okay. All right. So, and you said it's not debatable.
It's not debatable.
Oh,
go ahead.
Can I hear the motion again so I can be clear?
So move the latest on the table until our next special meeting and or March 18th.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Would you, I know it's not debatable, would you accept a friendly amendment to rewrite the resolution and put in a start date for school?
They would have the option to do that. You can't amend the way on the table. It's not amendable.
Okay.
But they would have that option to rewrite anything that they would like to rewrite and bring it back whenever it gets brought back.
Okay.
I was assuming that
The administration.
I was assuming that the special special meeting mission that he made would sort of make that happen, right?
I don't want to assume anything.
That's why.
And I really want to speak up about waiting until March 18th. I think that is, that date is too late.
Agreed. And here's what I will say. And there was some reference to it in comments. I think Kathy Michaels for sure, and other people might have referenced it also. We had good conversations last week and made progress on schedules. It almost, so much of it derives from what the instructional schedules for students are. So much of it. And the final implementation of the safety pieces, for example, depends on how long kids are on campus and what kind of numbers, and what configurations, right? And then you press go on so many other safety elements. I have confidence, not a guarantee, but I have confidence that we can have a productive week. We have offered to both units additional preparation time for them to caucus and work on the language that's in their court. We have offered, recommended, suggested, whatever you want to say, additional time at the table with both groups to expedite this. I think I can say, and again, there was some reference to it tonight. We're not miles apart here. We have some things, some challenging things still to get addressed, but we're not miles and miles apart. I have confidence and trust in our partners that we negotiate with that they do have our children return to school and learn in person. I know where we stand. right? This board has been remarkably consistent and clear in its call to make this happen. Do we have a little bit of time here before we would need to revisit timelines or resolutions? We got a little bit of time. We don't have 10 days. We don't have 10 days. We have a couple. Yeah. If I'm not, tell you what, folks, if I'm not in my weekly update on Friday, blasting out a whole bunch of information related to the reopening, concrete decided information related to the reopening, then we're in trouble. Then we're in trouble about getting this done. You know, and I think we're back in discussion as a governance team here about what kind of steps are available to us to move this forward, right? To protect the interests of our students and to ensure their safety and that of staff, and to make sure that we turn the corner to this next stage, this next phase. We do not have time.
All right, and with that, I'd like to thank Lloyd for his parliamentary patience while we debated his non-debatable motion. And then I'd like you to please restate.
I'm not here to call points of order.
And then please restate your motion one more time.
I move the latest matter on the table until our next special meeting or March 18th.
And DJ, you stand by your second on that motion.
I don't have a vote for it because I seconded it, but yeah, I seconded it, yeah.
You don't have the what? I'm sorry.
I don't have, never mind. Yes, I seconded it.
Just making sure.
Okay. All right. There's a motion and a second on this non-debatable motion. I will call the roll. DJ.
Aye.
Jewel.
Aye.
Lloyd.
Aye.
And I as well. All right. Motion passes. We will plan to return in a special meeting. I think you have your direction from us, Brian, and I want to make sure that it's clear that at this point in time we are not moving from our date of opening. So for the parents and the consistency and the kids and the things that we're talking about, we certainly heard some things that made us reconsider the resolution as written, but we are not moving away from our March 18th date.
Right.
All right. With that, let's see. That is our coming events. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is March 18th, and this I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.